the Curious Owl here, and today I'm going to be discussing my thoughts and feelings on Beautiful Chaos by Garcia and Margaret Stohl. This is the third book in the Beautiful Creatures series, so if you would like to look at any of the reviews that I have for the rest of the series, including the first two books and a novella that is between books 2 and 3, you can go check out my book reviews playlist for that, or I will leave links in the description for each of those reviews. This video contains spoilerly material of the book that is being reviewed, as it is part of a reread series. So I can't really go into the plot of this book specifically too much because there's a lot incorporated from book 2 and the novella between books 2 and 3 that is involved in this book. But what I will say is that things are really broken in this book, and Ethan and Lena have to basically find a way to fix things, but there are a lot of problems that come because of how things are broken. The first being that Lena and all the other casters within Gatlin are having some weird things happen to their powers. They're not working exactly the way they're supposed to, and there's a lot of problems that come because of that. The second thing is that the world is literally starting to fall apart more and more every day, actually closer to every hour of a day. Things are just seeming to go from bad to worse. And number 3 is they have no idea of how they can even fix things because they are so damaged, and they don't know if there is any way to fix things. So the thing about this book is that this is the third out of 4 books that are in the main series of Beautiful Creatures. So obviously with things kind of being so chaotic and things going haywire like they are, things are very intense all the time. And that is the majority of this book, and the pacing of this book is things are happening left and right and they don't know how to cope with it. And I really like that aspect because Beautiful Darkness was kind of slow for a good portion of it because there was a lot of lore building and a lot of world building in terms of kind of the caster world and how it works, and especially after the events at the end of Beautiful Darkness, this book has a lot more intense scenes in it because everyone is trying to figure out what the heck is even going on, and they're trying to find a way to get things to be fixed, but it's difficult. And so that intensity carries on through the entire novel, and I really enjoyed that aspect because it felt like everything they did was absolutely dire. Another huge chunk of this novel is searching for a character that is brought up in Beautiful Darkness by the name of John Breed, because in the second book he goes missing and they don't know where he is, and a lot of this book is dedicated to trying to find him, as there may be something with how to fix the world that involves him, but they're not exactly quite sure how, and they are also trying to figure out what exactly he is because it's determined that he's some kind of a hybrid of caster and incubus, but they're not sure exactly where that comes from or how that was done or even what exactly he is capable of in terms of his powers and abilities. A lot of secrets are unveiled in terms of the Wheel of Fate and things that are happening and who essentially has to sacrifice themselves in order to fix the order, or what has to be sacrificed even for the entire order of things to be fixed, since everything is basically broken. But nobody knows quite sure how that is or who's supposed to do that, so a lot of the book is delving into those secrets and figuring out the person or thing that needs to be done to bring things back to normal. So if you think that this book is going to go into more world building, as it is the third out of 4 books in the series, that's not exactly what it does. If anything, this book does delve more into some lore in terms of a particular group of people that are brought up in this book in terms of their relationship to the caster world and how they kind of run things. There's also a lot of build up to Lena's mother's past and how she became as dark as she is now and kind of why she became dark. There also is a lot dealing with the character of John Breed, like I said, and this other kind of idea of the Wheel of Fate, which kind of has a huge role in this book specifically in terms of how it is being how it is basically causing things to happen. The really funny thing to me is that after over 6 years since I've read this book, I think I had more emotions than I was expecting because, like I said, it's been a long time since I've read the book, but I do remember, especially at the end of this book, I cried so much, and I remember finishing the book a couple days ago and just sitting and being sad, and then later on crying myself to sleep with how upsetting this ending is because something happens and it's not exactly unexpected. You kind of see it coming towards the end of the book, but you just feel so distraught and so upset that it even has to happen, but you know it kind of has to happen to make things right. It just was really sad, and I really like how, despite this book not having been read for several years, that it was still able to make me do that, and there were so many great emotional parts throughout the story. I mean, as you guys can tell, I have a lot of pinks and blue tabs in here, which all were things that, either I loved or made me really upset or sad for one reason or another. There wasn't really anything that I came across that I was just kind of meh about. I honestly felt so many great emotions, happy or sad, throughout this book, and I think that if a book is able to do that 6 years after the first time you've read it, I think that holds a testament to how emotional this book really is to somebody. Now, to go into the character growth, considering this is the third book in the series, overall there wasn't really a lot of individual growth of characters because pretty much the entire book is centered around trying to figure out what the heck everyone is supposed to do. So there's not really any opportunities for characters to grow as people unless it is dealing with things like knowledge, like them learning more about things and stuff like that. I will say, though, that there is one character I could agree saying that he has some growth, but it is for spoilery reasons, and I do not want to delve into a lot of how he grows as a person because it kind of spoils a lot of what happens in the book. But I will say that a lot of Ethan's growth is seen in this book in terms of him finding out some really important information and kind of what his role is within the entire premise of the caster world and the entire safety of the world, basically. Now, in terms of the magic system in this world is basically broken because at the end of Beautiful Darkness, things kind of get chaotic, and there's things that kind of happen that cause things in this book to be extremely chaotic, hence the name Beautiful Chaos. But basically, with the magic system, everyone's powers are tampered with. Lena isn't able to really control her powers as well, and the other casters in the story are having a hard time with using their powers effectively, so everything's just kind of up in the air. Nobody really knows what's going on, and I like that because it really helped to ramp up the intensity of the story and really made things a lot more dire for how things are supposed to go in this story. You also find out that one of the characters' powers are vastly different from how they were before because of the events of the last book, and then it kind of delves into that in the novella that is between books 2 and 3, but you see a lot in this book of how their powers are different from how they used to be, which I really liked because it really shows a shift not only in the character's abilities, but also in the character himself. I feel like with the change in their powers, they really seem to have changed for, I would say, the better. Other than that, there really isn't much growth with the magic system other than the lore aspect, like I said earlier, with some of the things that kind of go on with different kinds of characters. But overall, this book was really just a lot of things kind of going wrong and trying to pick up the pieces. Now, that may seem like this wasn't really that good of a book, but honestly, I ended up giving Beautiful Chaos a 5 out of 5 stars because I feel like there was not one point in the book that I felt like I was lost. I didn't feel like I was upset with anything majorly. I feel like this book was just all around really good, and the intensity of the book made sense because things are so chaotic and so really messed up to where everyone has to try to scramble around to find an answer. And so because of that, I really thought that this was a really well done book, and especially for the third book in a 4-book series, I think it's really started to come to a head with how things are happening. Basically, in the timeline of the 4 books, I would say that this book reaches the climax of the story, and the 4th and final book, Beautiful Redemption, is kind of the fallout and kind of the after effects of the climax and kind of trying to figure out what kind of happens next, basically. So I was really impressed with it. I actually think this may be, at the moment, the favorite out of the 4 main books, because as you guys may know, if you watch my Beautiful Darkness review, that used to be my favorite book in the series when I was a lot younger, but as seen in my review, it actually was rated lower than the first book and is now rated lower than this book. So I think that says a lot for, you know, kind of how my tastes have changed and what I'm kind of looking for in terms of what I think is really good literature or really interesting stories and really good stories. So I'm very surprised to say that this one is starting to look to be my favorite book as of yet, but I still have Beautiful Redemption to read, and then the final novella in the series along with the 2 spin-off novels, and then the 4 prequel novellas that come with this series. So stay tuned for more of those reviews coming out in the future, and maybe we'll see kind of whether or not Beautiful Chaos ends up becoming the favorite of the group. Once I finish the 4th and final book in the main series, I will make my decision on whether or not this is the ultimate favorite or if book 4 was actually better. But anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me in this review. If you guys did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not already and you'd like to be, hit that button down below to subscribe to become an owlet in our flock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye, guys!